I'll come to Mr. Brampa shortly. But Dr. Bayo, you expressed some concern about, for example, the Upper East case. We know of Upper West also that somebody has run away. Yeah. And it doesn't look like anybody is being held responsible. In this situation too, in the Upper East region, it does appear there are suggestions that the person cannot be found. Do you suggest that it is time for such persons who are not trying to stay within the measures and the restrictions for their images to be released, so that the people in the communities where they live will help to trace them, or will do their bit not to be infected?
Okay, Samson, thank you. But it's a dicey one. It's a very difficult one. I think I should make some quick correction and then go ahead. Because I initially said that we wanted the patients, those confirmed, to be made known. I'm picking feet that it was misconstrued to suggest that I said the identity of the patient should be made known.
Now it is the identity I am asking now.
So I'm come to your question.
So, but what I stated was that we needed a location that helps us with our case definition and for us to predict where the cases are and then how to manage people coming from those specified areas. Now with the identity, there is a challenge, and the challenge is that our populace is not well educated. People still stigmatize against this condition. And there is the fear that was expressed by the regional minister for the northern region, which I think I support that fear, that if we do not take care, people may arrest these people and lynch them before even safety is brought in. This disease is not that lethal. It kills, but it doesn't kill as much as other diseases that we know of. So we should not overreact. But I think the law mandates the security agencies to take away some of our liberties. And within the confines of that law, I think when people are diagnosed, the security agencies should ensure that these people are kept in that restriction so that they do not escape as the situation has been. The other thing is, I think at the point of diagnosis, we should not just assume, we should give enough information to the patient. Because my suspicion is that most of these patients who have escaped, or this lady in Tamale who ran out, 21-year-old, may not really appreciate the gravity of what she's done. As far as she's concerned, she was being restricted, she cannot move, let me just escape and run away. Whoever is harboring her may not also appreciate that I'm putting myself at risk. So the education needs to go down and down and down till everybody gets to know about it. I'm not sure putting up their pictures or their names will be what will do the trick for us, for fear of how people might react. But I think when we get the people, we should inform them with enough information and ensure that they are within confinement where they are supposed to be and be treated.
Right. I understand that we'll be speaking to the Information Minister, Oppong Nkrumah, for a lot more updates on latest developments and other pieces of information that's useful that he will have to give us. Mr. Brampa, having listened from the minister, the economists, the police officers, the doctors, what do you have to say where you sit as CDD in also seeking to contribute to ensure that whilst we comply with these measures, things are done and done well?
Thank you very much, Samson. And let me say good morning to our listeners. I will pick your question also from Dr. Bayo's points. Yes. Do people have the right to leave the hospitals when they are found to have the COVID-19? I mean, the Act 1012 is clear. We have certain restrictions, and when people flout the restrictions, there are punitive measures in there.
Exactly.
The second point is also what I picked from him is the level of understanding and education that's out there. On monitoring the airwaves, and especially a scene that I saw myself on UTV in Accra, when a young lady was asked why she was out. She said she was going to sell phone cards. And this military man asked whether she was part of the exempted group. She said yes. The president did say that we can sell phone cards to people. I could see from the scene that the military man himself wasn't sure. So he just asked the lady to stand aside. Whether the lady was also speaking the truth. So he could sense a bit of misunderstanding or how people got the message outright. That's why in some of my media engagement, I did say that we need to carry out the message from the president well, for people to be able to understand. Because enforcement, yes, ignorance is no excuse of the law, but understanding of what I should do is also important for us to get there. From where we sit, and then being part of the coalition that issued a statement, we agree that the international human rights laws also give presidents or nations the right to also restrict certain rights when it comes to situations like this. And we all agree that we are not in normal situations. So the question is, how do we find a balance? Being able to enforce the law so that we'll save ourselves from the pandemic, and also being able to ensure that we don't trample upon the rights of our citizenry. This is where we come in as CDD Ghana, and this is what we'll be monitoring. First of all, the first point that we would not have to say was whether in coming up with the law, there were contingency measures. For instance, my sister from the police service has given us the assurances that they were not going to do. Do we have any medium that people whose rights have been trampled upon could report? Were there any hotlines that people could do that? In our statement, we even requested that there could have been a WhatsApp line that people can video and send directly, not those being speculated on the social media, send directly to a prescribed center where those things will be investigated. Yes, we need to understand the situation in which we are. We need to conform to directives, but there also need to be medium of enforcement so that we balance the two.
Let's get to the information minister and I'll return to you. Could you, Oppong Nkrumah, could you thank you very much for joining us?
Good morning, Samson. Good morning to your guest in the studio.
Right, and it must be a very hectic time for you. I see you, you can turn your system down for me, please. I'm getting a feedback. Right. So, yeah, it's better now. You can completely just kill the sound. Right. So I take it that you are on the front line. We can only pray and hope that you will be protected as well as you go about what you are doing. And many people are giving you a lot of, applause for how you are going about your job in this direction. So
can you hear me, Samson?
Yes, I can hear you. Right. So I said a good job done so far, but first, let's begin with the extension of the closure of the borders.
Yeah. Well, yes, this morning we've just put out information that His Excellency the President has caused to be gazetted Executive Instrument 66 or EI 66, which executive instrument essentially seeks to amend EI 64 by providing a 2-week extension to the closure of our borders. You recall that we first passed the Imposition of Restrictions Act 1012, which created room for the president to, by executive instrument, impose some restrictions. Now, EI 64 closed our borders from the 22nd of March for 2 weeks so that we could curtail the risk of importation of COVID-19 cases. That 2-week period will end on the 5th of April. And so His Excellency the President, operating within the law, in accordance with subsection 2 of section 4 of the Imposition of Restrictions Act, has, as at this moment, issued an executive instrument which has been caused to be gazetted, which essentially gives a 2-week extension to the closure of our borders, because we still believe that it's important to keep those borders closed, even as we try to tidy up the domestic incidents through this enhanced testing program.
Yes, and as you emphasize, this measure has effectively sort of terminated importation of cases, but community infections is where you want to concentrate now. Beyond the step taking in Ayawaso, how else do we want to detect as many as we can in the communities and to stem the tide? I've heard you speak about wanting to flatten the curve as quickly as possible.
So let's go back. The exercise we're doing is not about ayahuasca. We have a database of persons who we believe must primarily be traced and tested. And it's made up of about two strands. First are those who are come into contact with our positive cases as we know them to be within the general population. As at the time we commenced, that was about, I think about 54 positive cases, which gave us close to about 1,000 contacts. The first job is to find all those 1,000 persons and test them, and also engage their primary circles to be sure that if indeed there's going to be a spread, this is the most likely path it's going to be taking. The second job is that for the 79 persons who we put into mandatory quarantine, close to about another 1,000 persons, including government officials who had to go to the airport, security persons, airport staff, drivers, hotel staff, have had to be managing them. All of these persons also need to be contacted and traced, but that is a more restricted pool. It's easy to deal with them. And then critically, what the mandatory quarantine taught us was a proof of concept that there were about 14 flights or 14 destinations that had flights coming into the jurisdiction which were now at risk. And so what we did was to go back. Initially, if you took from the 3rd of April coming, that gave us about 34,000 people. And then you had to do the extrapolation and take out those who had been in the country for more than 14 days, and therefore they still not have any symptoms, etc. In the end, we had a pool of close to about 5,000 persons thereabout on some 14 times 2, 28 flights that we had to literally surveil. So when you put all of these people together, you are hitting at about 6,000 to 7,000 people who are the primary people that we need to trace. They are not just in Accra or in Ayawaso. They are in many parts of the country. That is why we have said that the teams for contact tracing and testing are not just limited to Accra or the Greater Accra or the Greater Kumasi region, but they are in other parts of the country, because following the data they give us, we know that that's where they are. So these are the primary persons that we are tracing and testing. And then also around their circles, you also engage in the tracing and testing there. I think as at 2 nights ago, we had been able to do about 6,000 traces and taking of samples. And the exercise will continue. Our target is to, in this enhanced program, hit about 50,000, so that we are going after the virus, not waiting for it to pop up and for people to come if they have symptoms only.
Well, that may be something within our means and what we can afford. But how do you compare that to elsewhere? Say, for example, in the UK, they are targeted to do 100,000 tests a day, hoping to, flatten the curve as quickly as they can. Are we looking to go beyond what we are doing now?
I'll give you another one. South Africa is hoping to do 30,000 tests a day. The question really becomes, why are these countries at this level, and why are we at a different level? So take the case of South Africa, or first let me backtrack. Testing for COVID-19, which is one of the coronaviruses, is a test that the experts tell us you best do using the PCR approach, not the rapid diagnostic test or the RDTs, because the RDT may just show you that you've been exposed to a general coronavirus. It may not show you, or it will not show you that you've been exposed to COVID-19.
Okay.
So first of all, you are limited in the kind of test you can use. For the PCR test, they need to extract a respiratory residue sample, which is what they will now take to the lab and then put into the machines to run the test. Now, you must understand that there are countries that already have PCR systems extensively. And therefore, at this stage, all they need are the sample picking materials and the residue, and they are good to go. So if you go to South Africa, because of the high HIV prevalence rate and the work they've had to do on HIV over the years, and the attendant cases that come from HIV or that are associated with the tuberculosis, etc., they have a very wide PCR machinery base across South Africa. So it's easier for them to say in a short period, at this time when the world is short of equipment and machines and logistics. It's very easy for them to say they are going to do 30,000 a day because they already have the machinery. We have not had that capacity because it has not been a challenge to us over the years. We have initially had 2, KCCR and Noguchi. Now we've added 1 more in Accra. We are quickly recalibrating some more labs across the country, labs that already do some tuberculosis testing, which also uses the PCR machinery. So within the framework of what we have, this is how we're able to ramp up within the constraints as against other people. But the question becomes, will 50,000 tests over, hopefully, let's say this 14-day or 21-day period, would it be enough? And we keep making the point that enough is relative. If you have clarity of what your at-risk population is, and if you've taken a decision to restrict movement so that the risk of communal spread is also halted for this about 14-day period, then if you're able to go after your 6,000, 7,000 people and even hit up to 50,000, and within all these primary circles, you are still not finding a major ramp up of the COVID-19, then you can assess your risk and make a determination whether you need to still go on testing everybody or whether within the calculated means that you have taken, you have been able to come to a good judgment. And that's what we are doing to guide us to make the next decision.
Okay. Thank you very much, but you hold on briefly for me. We take a quick break, but when we return, I'd like you to help us out. Mr. Brampa here made a reference to a military officer who had an encounter with someone who was going to sell scratch cards. We understand that you have set up a call center. What can people report to the call center and what help can they get? We were told 2 weeks ago that within 2 weeks, we're going to get 2 more testing centers. What can you tell us about that? We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's the most authoritative news analysis platform. My guest in the studio, Dr. Titus Bayo and Mr. Brampa of the CDD. Oppong Nkrumah is on the line. Yes, Kojo, so I asked those 2 questions. You have a call center. What can people have addressed at this call center? And the 2 testing centers that were supposed to be done in 2 weeks. It's 2 weeks now. What do we know?
I mean, as at, I think 2 days ago, the Ghana Health Service explained to us, working with Noguchi Memorial Institute, that they had succeeded in adding a third. A third had been calibrated and was working. Our expectation is that before we start the new week, they would have finished with the calibration of the 4th center, so that can also join. And indeed, as I mentioned, there are a few others in other parts of the country that they intend to bring on board. Great. Now, it's important during this exercise to get a lot of feedback from citizens. And that is why government has rolled out the National Information Contact Center that you can reach by calling the number 311. 311. 311 has helped us to get a lot of information from health facilities that still do not have PPEs where it ought to be. And we're able now to compare that data with the distribution data and therefore direct some more. You have places in which there may be PPEs that have been sent, but it's still at the regional stores, or it has gone down to a particular hospital, but it's not being evenly distributed between emergency and OPD. It's probably sitting at ICU only. But the number of calls that have come in on 311 on PPEs, which we have made available to the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry responsible for health, we believe will begin to help us ease that, even as we look for a lot more PPEs to be made available and to produce a lot of it in the Ghanaian jurisdiction. Admittedly, not all of it is available, but the little that is available must be distributed to the very bottom. What 311 has also helped us to do is to get a lot of feedback on suspected infractions by individuals and then by security persons. So you have neighborhoods in which people are not respecting the imposition of restrictions, and other residents call 311 and draw attention. Just this morning, there's a block factory busily operating somewhere around Legon. Our attention has been drawn to it, and we're working with the security agencies to ensure that the necessary things are done there. again, for security persons that are suspected to have been involved in infractions, which feedback has come through, having worked with the Joint Operations Command, yesterday they were instructed to issue booklets that list out all the exemptions and how to apply that discretion. And so the Chief of Defense Staff, General Akwa, yesterday assured His Excellency the President at last night's meeting that they will do well to ensure that all officers, police and military out there are given copies of these booklets so that they have clarity on the exemptions and how to exercise discretion in favor of those who are exempt. For health workers in particular, we're also working through the Minister responsible for transport to make available dedicated transport on major routes for health workers so that we can also ease the burden of health workers even at this point in time.
Finally, before I find out if you have some word to give to Ghanaians, is the lockdown likely to be extended? I'm talking about in time, or to other places, or a total lockdown? Is it in contemplation?
Now you're inviting me into speculation, Samson. I think generally what we have said is that all cards are on the table. Whatever measures need to be taken to ensure that we protect the citizen of this country, His Excellency the President will take those measures. So all cards are on the table. However, at this point in time, we have not even discussed whether or not it will be necessary to extend it, because the data for week 1 is now being wrapped up. We are now wrapping up the first week. In particular, the number of tests you are able to do over this period, and then surveillance of what is happening in the other 14 regions, whether or not indeed you have cases popping up there as a result of movement, will be key strands that guide. And all of that data is being put together. As I speak to you this morning, once that data comes in, we'll be able to now make an informed decision. But as we speak, all cards remain on the table. My suspicion is that by tomorrow, the president will literally account to the country for what has been done so far in these first 7 days of the imposition of restrictions in Greater Accra and Greater Tomorrow. And he'll give us an indication of the kind of reports that will be together by 6 p.m. tomorrow.
Right. Any final words?
I think our words are of thanks. Yesterday we had an opportunity to express it, and with your opportunity, let me reiterate it. Our words are of thanks to the frontline persons who are helping us battle this. Our health workers in particular, we salute them for the sacrifice and the risks that they are taking. Our security agencies, especially those who are also using it as an opportunity to advise and educate, we salute them. To you, our colleagues in the media, you have done a tremendous job in helping to educate and spread calm and share the good news. To people like Dr. Bayo and all the other medical professionals who are also offering themselves, even at their own risk, to help us with public education, Ghana will forever be indebted to you, especially by the time we're done with this.
Of course, and you are also at the front line now. And thanks for all the good job you have done. You have drawn a lot of applause from Ghanaians for how you have managed to do the work that you continue to do. We pray for safety for you as you assist the country navigate these difficult times. Thank you, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. He's the Information Minister and MP for Ofuase. Now to you, Mr. Abrampa. As you spoke, I sought to elicit that you seem to suggest that something ought to be done about the education. What about the education you think is missing that ought to be fixed?
Thank you very much, Samson. We must appreciate the fact that this is an emergency, and unlike normal policies that go with thorough education before even the policy comes out. This week got up one night just to hear that we are going to go on lockdown. Even though some measures of guidance had come up, social distancing and others, people did not get into details why they should do social distancing. Yesterday, if you follow the media at Bukum, when some media men went there, it's like people were virtually asking for money before they go home. So people are not appreciating the impacts of this disease and why they should socially distance themselves from others. If you are in the cities like Accra and Kumasi, and you hear people even within the reach of media houses showing signs of not understanding a clear directive of the president, then you can imagine what happens at the hinterlands, what happens. So we believe as a civil society organization, both players in the industry did not have time to contribute as we normally do when policies are coming out. So we need to now take it up. I heard the lamentation virtually from the National Commission for Civic Education that says he hasn't even got the material logistics to carry out the education. Yes, our good brother Oppong Nkrumah Honorable said they've issued statement to all the departments, the District Department of Information Services, to carry out the education. My checks from some districts indicate that they are not also having the logistics to also carry out the education. I must say, getting people inside their homes, it's not their usual habits. So it takes a bit of education, sustained and constant. Not just telling people they should wash their hands and go home, but the education must go a bit of sensitization to tell them the effects of the action you are taking. That will actually let people appreciate what is out there and the fact that they should also conform to the directives. We have Act 1012, which also have specific deterrent measures. People are not even aware of the act as to what they should do. Titus was saying so many things here that I was happily listening to him. How many people are there are aware of the dangers that he was expressing here? So I think there should be a holistic platform of education formulated together in a joint form. When you go to the MMDAs, we have the district security dialogue committees.
Right.
What are they doing? When it says security, it does not only talk of a bit of security disaster that we talk about. Health security is also a form of security. What have the district done? If the district NCC officers are saying they don't have the logistics to do, what can the MMDAs do to support?
The NCC has only two mobile vans to use for, education purposes. Thankfully, is it the Pentecost Church?
Yeah. They've withdrawn it.
Yes. Yeah. They've withdrawn them?
Yes.
The Pentecost Church gave them about
12. They didn't donate. They gave them their vehicles for the purposes for education.
Yes.
But my last checking is that they've withdrawn them.
Why?
Yeah, I can't tell now. Probably they also need it for their services.
So please give us information about that.
So what I'm saying is that when you look at elections, which is also an emergency issue, the way the MMDAs mobilize, even taking vehicles from the secondary schools to support distribution of election materials, why can't we do same to support the information services and NCC in the districts? That they will work with the district directorate of health to come up with a well-rehearsed education, go down there, let people appreciate the effect of these things. In the olden days, they have cinema vans that they will come to your communities and they will show pictures as to what is happening in Italy, what is happening in the US. That itself is enough education to let people know that, yes, my life is in danger. If they say I should be at home, I should conform. We are telling people to be at home. They don't actually appreciate why they should be at home. Okay. So I think, to me, education consists about 70% of our fight.
Right. Before I get to Dr. Bayo, I had asked you to share your experiences with us. Annie Osabote says, I work from home, but when it becomes necessary, I go to the office. Okay, he's in the essential category. I spend my spare time reading books or playing the guitar and distributing food items and sanitizers friends have entrusted into my care to those who need them at this time of the season. God bless you, Annie Osabote, for doing that job. Gerald Atampori says that for some of us who are mostly away for work, the body and psychological adjustment has been a struggle. I must say, working at home with wifey and 3 boys around is a whole new experience. He says it's really tough. The good thing, though, is the family is bonding. I have missed a lot in the past years, and I'm catching up. Okay, so that's really great. Some of us are also enjoying that as well. We'll take a quick break and return to continue. You're welcome welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. I'll just share two more of the messages of those of you sharing with us. Elijah Awile says that very sad, it's been a very sad one for me, staying home, 6 days lockdown with salary finished already. Things that were bought under the panicky situation at astronomical prices, almost finished. It's a hard experience. Okay, it will be well. Kenny Kwan Young says we must have extended partial lockdown. Total lockdown would be a disaster for the very poor ones. How would they have food to eat without savings and without any stock up in food? Thanks for those messages, but someone sends me a very interesting way to look at it. It says, look at the prisoners. There are people who go to prison and they spend many years. They are in isolation. We can do it. Let's also do it. Somebody gives the example of Nelson Mandela, 27 solid years in solitary isolation in prison. He survived it. So let's try 2 weeks. If it gets extended, let's try. And the safety nets that are needed for all others should also be deployed. Now, a senior colleague, as in a lawyer, wants us to emphasize that contact tracing and testing is mandatory, and the law provides for it. If you look at the EI 65, it says that a person who has tested positive for COVID-19 shall provide all relevant information to the health authorities to enable contact tracing of persons who have come into contact with that person. A person who is identified through contact tracing to have come into contact with an infected person shall be tested for COVID-19, and where the result of the test is positive, that person shall be taken to a designated medical isolation center for treatment. So it makes testing through contact tracing mandatory, and also mandatory quarantine of positive cases. Thank you very much, lawyer Opoku Ejay. So let me come to Dr. Bayu now, and and I keep using the example of Italy. In Italy alone, so far, doctors, and I'm not talking about just health workers in general, 77 doctors have lost their lives being at the forefront, and they have advanced, medical facilities, and they got, good protection. You guys here, are you scared? We have heard also at Kolebu, some people suggested they didn't have enough protective gear and all of that. What's going on, and what's going on in your minds as individual clinicians?
All right, thank you, Samson. The picture doesn't look very good if you look at the story of Italy, and we have been following it, and it's a respect of no persons. In fact, one of the presidents of their medical association, one of the leaders there, died of this condition, and they have a website which they keep updating with a list of all doctors who are falling. And if you look at the specialties, these are top-notch specialized doctors that it will take years to produce their replacement, and we're looking at their health.
In their case, they name them.
They name them. They give their name, their specialty, and the date they died. So you are seeing pulmonologists, you are seeing diabetologists, you are seeing all of that. And if you are in the medical fraternity, you would understand that if you lose a top-notch specialist at that level, it takes time to even replace the person, because our process of specialization is not that easy. So it's of great concern to us. And yes, they have better systems, but protection-wise, I don't think they had it. When we follow and look at the analysis of it, at some point, by virtue of our training, it's difficult for a doctor to see a patient dying and do nothing about it. So some of them even had to handle patients with bare hands, and in the course of this, got themselves infected and unfortunately have died. So what are we doing in this country? We are saying that there's a need to protect the health worker. The health worker, or the frontline health worker, is one of our best assets in this battle. And if we lose them, it doesn't help. And the protection can be at 3 levels. The state And I think the state must make sure that there's continued provision of the PPEs. And when we talk of PPEs, it's not just about the overalls or the gowns. Sometimes just the basic mask, surgical masks, is all that is required at some level, or the N95 masks. So these things should be made available. And then improve communication. We commend the information ministry for what they are doing so far, but we think there must be a separate channel of communication to health workers. The reports we are getting so far, where sometimes a case is confirmed, it is announced, and the doctors who have handled the patient do not know about it. I don't think that is fair, because this doctor would have handled this patient, has to go home, they don't know what is happening there, and then hours after it's been confirmed, it's been announced, they do not even still know about it. And this happened in major hospitals across the country, and we don't think that is helpful. So improved communication, a new communication channel mandated or specifically for health workers will be useful. Then with patients, we are asking patients to volunteer information, all the truth and everything, and call the hospitals instead of going. Then finally, to the healthcare worker, we ask for self-protection, high index of suspicion. Assume every patient is a potential COVID-19 case, and then we will all be safe.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Brampa, we have information that Pentecost have actually not withdrawn the advance, so those circulating that information, that's not correct, and that is still with NCC and is helping them.
12 vans?
Yes, 12 vans to help them to do the job a lot more better. They had only one, they had only two for the whole nation. That's sad. And as these things expose some of these weaknesses, I hope that we are all taking note so that we will strengthen these institutions. This is a time that, you know, no matter how much money you have, you will not go out of Ghana to get treatment anywhere. You stay in Ghana. So if we build our systems right, we will be better protected. Mr. Brampa, what will be your final words as we look to the second week of the lockdown and the enforcement of the measures?
Thank you. I'll have three things to say. One, I appreciate what the information service is doing, as Kojo itemized them, coming up with the booklets that will make it clear as to see the enforcement's nature, who are involved in the exemption list, so as to make it clear as to the forefront security men who are enforcing it. Two, that there's a hotline, 311. I just got to know of it. I didn't know whether you are aware before coming here. How do we send the number around so people get to know the number and use it to report of infractions, and also things that they see around? My third one goes to the decentralized assemblies, the MMDAs. They have a role to play. It is of nothing that we set up a structure of localized security committees. So when you look into our security system, we have the Regional Security Committee, the RECSEC, we have the District Security Committee, and they have to be grouped into some of these things. And we urge the district assemblies to support the Information Service Division, support the NCC, to work with the District Directorate of Health to come up with a good message and sell to the people. As I said, people in the olden days, we used to have cinema vans that the information services go out there to show videos to people, and this make people appreciate the extent of a danger that's coming up, so as to conform to directives that are given. We need to go back to some of these things to support the system. I take education and this fight to be about 70%, as the doc just said. 70% of it. We are changing behavior. We are changing character. It doesn't take a day. We need to have people understand why they should sit at home.
Okay, thank you very much. And Dr. Bayo, as I did for Dr. Amoesi, in some 30 seconds in a minute, speak to your people in the Upper West region, where we have had a case there.
Okay.
What they should do practically.
Okay. So Dagarabiri in Zelena abalona tinayela bafano owana beatizie in a zeletiza aletina yeketi perati nuru titala neta kwe pampana tibele male kure inti zire ndibe na langtaya ati vure akora anatona itinya abalona in Zelena atina bala mbuse lora tipiela hamile abokina ndibe mitwana cross wati bambena ne kan wa yia be to so na be ia assault na banga e wa watizira te ia hospital ne be bang so da beton bang aso akaso ne mu alo so wa yir awakɔrɛ bi ni wanya so wa yi akra kazie kan wa abata lafia nita so oli asobe ni tera so chenya hospital at better test ala ya bal na otera abeka eti sonta because ne kan watero efun wa take se fun be poa ana lori na anu apara for me it is zelena ni salaza to good timga ni barka.
Thank you very, very much. You have been watching and listening to Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis platform. Mr. Abrampa, 30 seconds. What would you say to your people? In which language? Abrampa?
Asante.
Asante Chi.
Okay. Like I say, Mami Papa mo yade no ayampa. Ekuma titru, ekuma brempon. Won bibi di mpo betumi ahwe won ho so ekuma. Me ni umi no yenye bibi di so yemo ye ho ba kire yen. Yen nyina yen kamom, yen hyefie, yen horo yen sa. Ni nimra o mampanyi di aba no so. Na prank akra bi no ye ho kire yen, e da chi bi ye ho toyan e papa sense yen nyina betena sena ya so den yes yase ahye.
Thank you very much. And the IT consortium, together in partnership with the Ghana Medical Association and some groups, is asking you to help stop the spread, and that together we can do it. It's helping to raise funds in aid of PPEs for frontline health workers, healthcare workers. You do star 887 star 10 hash, star 887 star 10 hash, and you send your contribution and your donation to help purchase PPEs for frontline workers. Thank you very much. I'm Samson Ladi Ayenini. Have a good afternoon.